I come from a company called Booker Marine, and Sabantu has very kindly dealt with most of the contentious issues that I would have had to deal with. It could be said that I suppose, like Prasheen in the last presentation, that I represent demand, and I don't see too many other people or friends from the demand side of this transaction in front of me, but at the same time, I'm very aware that out of all this money that's been spent on seafarer development and training, etc., pretty much none of it is actually spent on the demand side of this transaction. All of it goes into the supply side. And so we shouldn't be too surprised when we find ourselves wondering why we have a great deal of supply and insufficient demand. And that's not to say that government should be spending its money creating shipping companies. In fact, one of the key deliverables in terms of achieving its job creation ambitions, I would say, is that I would welcome if once and for all and forever, this whole idea of a state-owned shipping company could be thrown out of the window permanently. Because at the end of the day, just the fact that it remains part of the national dialogue disincentivizes people from coming into this industry. It creates uncertainty, it creates concerns over sustainability, and it's a distortion to what's been successful anywhere else in the world. But I'm not going to mind too much about the fact that we haven't been getting too much of the funding, because at the end of the day, we're quite happy with the successes that we've enjoyed. Not to say that we haven't been on the receiving side of some of the points that Sabantu made at the tail end of his presentation. We've encountered, we hope that the South Africans that we placed onto our ship would be shining examples for what South Africans would be capable of, and in many respects we have seen that, and in some respects we haven't. But that's just in the ordinary course of any business, I suppose. So we have to just keep going, learning, improving as we go along. In 2015, we brought the Cape Orchid onto the flag, and in August 2015, a month later, we brought the Cape Enterprise onto the flag. Since September 15, both those ships have been sailing with South Africans on board at all times. We adopted a slightly different approach to what other people had suggested. We had initially gone out looking for officers. We could bring in ready-made that would be bulk ship qualified. We were unsuccessful in that. So we still took our cadets from SAMSA initially, and we started a process where we would try to retain those people after their cadetship and grow them towards being good officers on board these vessels. The second point I'd like to point out after my comment about the state shipping company is we have not found it useful or consistent with international practice to consider a one-year cadetship program. So we will never make a South African cadet, with or without a COC, an officer on one of our vessels until they've met the international standard of 3 voyages. There's a great deal they need to understand, still to learn once they've done their COC. The cadets that have come back to us have accepted this, and the first cadets are now being promoted into officers, and I think certainly one is imminent and one has already happened in the engine room on the Cape Orchid. And it would have been going a bit more quickly if we had had a better retention of the earliest cadets that we put on board. But it's going to become quite a rapid process from now on, and we're quite happy with that. We've also started finding ways to bring people on board who did not do the cadetship with us now, and we have started hiring up at senior officer levels as well for people that didn't do the cadetship with us. And I think that's important, but it brings us on to the third issue, which we've got to bear in mind, which is that we don't see the hiring of South African crews as a South African issue. Because if you are looking to place 800,000 people into employment, and using the thumb suck of 2.5 land-based jobs to 1 seafarer job, you're talking at about just under 300,000 people to go to sea. You have to be sensitive to ways of placing those people onto internationally flagged ships. There's no way that the South African job prospect for seafarers can grow as quickly as the South African register. It's just not ever going to be meaningful. And that's why we've aligned ourselves with a company called Maritime, and a Japanese company called K-Line. Between them, they have nearly 800 ships. And the plan is to make sure that anyone that we qualify on one of our ships can equally be placed on any of those ships, and that we would then be able to replenish internally. That's a bold ambition, but we'd like to get that. But it's also led us to a way, and it did occur to me in the previous presentation before lunch, that we really haven't followed the Irish path, the Irish model that is being inculcated into the academic study that underpinned PAKISA. We have aligned ourselves with the Filipino model because that's the model that created well over 1 million jobs. 2006, we had 1 million Filipino seafarers, of which 275,000 were at sea and 788 were ashore. By 2016, that had grown to over 2 million. So it took 40 years for the Philippines to get to their first million, and then 10 to get to their second million. Now, there's a lot of lessons that we can learn and a lot of relationships that we can leverage to get there, but I really believe that that is the model we should be pursuing, both in terms of standards, in terms of culture, and there's no reason why we can't, because I subscribe fully to what Sabantu said about the South African seafarers being educated, intelligent, normally respectful of the chain of command, willing to work hard. I would just like, before I wrap up, to talk about 1 or 2 minor issues about differences between supply and demand when it comes to international shipping as I've experienced it, because there are a lot of areas of agreement. We agree that there's nothing wrong with South African candidates or anything that would render them unqualified, but there's work to be done, bringing them into line with the international standards and practices. We agree that we need to take the market for seafarers away from foreigners, as Sabantu was saying, that it's actually foreign flag vessels with foreign crews carrying out freight. That is the opportunity that must be targeted. We agree that we desire a thriving, multifaceted industry, that SAIMI's involvement has been invaluable because SAIMI was investing when no one else was, and that South Africa must play a broader role. But I think whereas the supply side is in a hurry and impatient and wants to be accelerated, the demand side is saying take time, get it right, train, and prepare people in advance. On the supply side, there's apparent focus on officers. On the demand side, we can create a lot more jobs amongst ratings and artisans, quite frankly. We don't have that many officer bits. If you want to target numbers, it's not going to be 800,000 officers. The supply side has a national focus. We have an international multi-flag focus. The supply side has a maritime focus. We focus on the value chain, starting at the mine and finishing at the port on the other side. And that's how we can generate value. Finally, but I think, if I can just make my final point, we're very bullish on this. And we do believe that if the right things are done, we can make a great deal of headway into job creation in maritime. With the right partners, the right skills, the right focus. And we do think that perhaps we should be looking at the way spend is distributed across the trading chain. We could bring up a little bit to the demand side as well. But finally, my last point is that in order to make any or all of this happen, government has to scrum together. You cannot have different departments of government doing different things, saying different things and pushing different priorities and actually undermining the ability of the industry to be competitive as an employer and as a shipping operator. But having said all that, we are very hopeful that things are going to improve, that we are going to be able to bring more ships. I agree with Sabantu that that is the ships as an enabler is key at our current level of development. In 10, 20 years' time, maybe ships on the flag will be less important, but they're certainly the only facilitator of employment right now. But anyway, thank you very much for your time. I'll be happy to take questions later.